That was an improvised solo on the tune Cissy Strut by the Meters. This week I'm talking about fake guitar playing versus real guitar playing, and maybe some studio things that I use, methods and effects and things, and kind of my take on the issue of miming and not miming. Going along with this issue is sometimes stolen or borrowed material. So I'm going to discuss that a little bit as well. Before I go on, please like and subscribe and check out the description down below and join our email newsletter. You'll get free lessons sent straight to your inbox. First of all, I'll acknowledge what's going on with the backing track and my solo on that. So before recording this, I went to the track or tracks inside of my recording software. Then I brought up the backing track I developed for the Cissy Strut melody lesson. And I took a portion of that drum sample or that I programmed and I looped it. So I just had it going again and again. Then I listened to the bass part on the original recording of the Meters, learned it on bass real quick, and then recorded it along with my looped drum track. Then I went back to the original recording again, listened to the rhythm guitar part, sorted out the voicing and the rhythm on the same guitar but with a brighter setting, and recorded that in. Now when I recorded that part, I found this voicing was likely the one that was being used, and I noticed a little bit of scratching, muted sound, which is typical with the style. And so I incorporated that, and there were a couple little details to it that I included, and I tried to get the overall feel of it going and the rhythm. So it's pretty much a direct copy from the original recording. Now when I listened back, I felt that the muted parts could come down a little bit in volume, so I did what's called automation. So I took those parts and I cut those down by about 9.5 decibels so that they're still in there, but they're just quiet. But at that point, I'm just stepping into the production aspect of things. So I'm really just thinking about the balance of the mix as a whole. And actually, when I went to record the melody lesson for Cissy Strut, I felt that this part of it was a little loud in the mix, and I just left it alone. And the reason that I did that was that when it comes to the educational aspect of this channel, I want folks to hear really exactly what I'm doing, whereas I'm not giving a rhythm guitar lesson in this video, so it's just kind of sitting there supporting in the rhythm section. Now, one thing that I do when I play a solo, like here in the beginning, is I add some effects. Usually it's pretty light. A lot of the tunes I'm doing on this channel are either jazz or fusion oriented. So if it's a fusion type tune or maybe a funky type tune like this style, I may add more effects to it. So the melody lesson on this one this past week had a chorus effect, and on this solo, I'm going with more of a delay effect, which are kind of related effects, but delay is more of an echo kind of thing. But that's typical for us guitarists anyway, to use those types of effects. Now, when I went to record this, I was feeling a little bit on the spot. I jammed along with my rhythm section a little bit, played around with some ideas, did some of the typical ideas. And then I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go back to that meters recording again and we'll listen to the organ solo. Now, I didn't transcribe the solo really at all. I'm listening more for the notes that the player is tending to go for. So I'm hearing roots on the C7. I'm hearing fifths. And I'm hearing this really cool line that I like a lot. Something along those lines. And I thought, well, I don't want to maybe lift that exact part, but I really kind of like this sound. So I used that. I played it in different locations, down an octave, and tried to develop it a little bit. So in jazz or maybe fusion, in our tradition, we don't usually lift entire solos, but sometimes we do take phrases, and oftentimes, so there are a lot of little cliche things. Little rhythmic things, lines, and after a while, after you've transcribed a bunch of phrases and solos, they kind of come out in your playing and you might not even remember how it got there. Okay, so let's get back to fake playing versus real playing or miming and all of this. So I remember watching at the time a new release from Eric Johnson, and he's out kind of outside, it's kind of a wooded area, and he's playing and you're hearing a studio recording and there's no patch cable going into the guitar at all. But you can see he's really playing the part. And he's not trying to hide that it is technically being mimed. Let me know how you feel about this, but for me, that's perfectly fine. Now, a lot of young players are coming up with compositions that are really tough to play on the guitar and maybe impossible, but passing it off as a live session. So this is really problematic. Some cases it's sped up, played by a virtual instrument. I'm not sure how they could just articulate what's really going on in an eloquent way, but at minimum, they shouldn't be passing it off as live playing. It sets really unrealistic expectations. So anyhow, for me on my channel, this is not an entertainment channel. This is an educational channel. I do full playthroughs. I typically do a bunch of takes. I might, depending on the tune, just listen to the very last take and go with it. Sometimes I'll listen back to previous takes and pick the one that I like the best. For me, it's important that what I'm doing visually, and I'm doing these close-ups on the fingers, is teaching something, teaching technique, and all the various aspects of performing music, but within a nice, polished, studio quality sound. If you're playing and maybe recording, maybe putting content out, there are a few advantages in doing things this way. For one thing, it keeps your skills sharp and helps to elevate and gain experience over time. It can also document where you're at on your instrument in a given period of time and in the past, so you can go back and see how far you've grown. I think one of the most important things is, wouldn't you rather be spending your time playing your instrument than editing? Also, in the recording at the beginning, sometimes I'm behind the beat. Sometimes I'm a little bit ahead of the beat. And that is a good thing, in my opinion, to have a little bit of flexibility and let it move. It's an important effect in music, and it can help add intensity and change moods. So if you're quantizing your playing, you're going to lose all of that. And then there's dynamics. Want to have a little bit of soft and loud. Now, if I go through and I've got a track that really works nicely together, and something in the lead guitar part sounds a little bit too loud, I may take the volume on that down a little bit, because what happens is you can clip the digital converter and it really doesn't sound pleasant. So I may duck that down a little bit, or sometimes I take the whole mix down if I've already put it together, just for that moment where it might get a little bit too loud. So let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. I sometimes watch a few videos here and there on these types of topics, so love to hear what you think. Let's talk a little bit about this tune. So I've got C7 or C9. One real go-to, of course, is the minor pentatonic. So C minor pentatonic. You might hear me doing a little bending over here. And it's nice to play around with some moments where you're a little bit flat and you kind of go right into it and duck back down under pitch. So try that out a little bit. In the melody of the tune, there is a slight bend on the flat third, so you could always do that. Another thing is to maybe go right into playing around with the flat third and the natural third. Now the chord voicing has a 9. So you can work with something called the dominant pentatonic as well. Also known as the minor 6 pentatonic from G. Now we don't have to work with all of these exclusively, and there are even more. You can do a blues scale, or you can have your phrases switch in between these various note collections. And like I said earlier, I like to go to a few recordings and listen for what this player likes to go for, this player likes to go for, partly so that I feel I'm playing appropriately on the genre or subgenre. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Please give me a comment down below and let me know what I should feature in future videos in this series. Enjoy your practice session, and I'll see you all in the next one.